Hi, boys and girls. Today we're working on lesson 16 in Engage New York, which is actually the last lesson in the problem set for Module 8. So it is our last math lesson of the year. So let me go ahead and share my screen and pull up my ladybug so you can see. So for me, I'm on page 79 in my Eureka Math book, and we're working on elapsed time. So that is how much time has passed. So for number one, they're giving us a starting time and an ending time, and they want to know how much time has passed between those two. So A has 6:30 a.m. and 7 o'clock a.m. So if I make my clock show, first I'm going to start at 6 o'clock. So right here we have 6 o'clock where the hour hand is facing the 6 and the minute hand is exactly on the 12. To go from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. would be 1 hour or 60 minutes. But they have us starting at 6:30 a.m. So we're going from 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. So that is a time difference of half an hour or 30 minutes. So I'm going to write 1/2 hour for letter A. Now, letter B is 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. These are both times that are exactly on the hour. So when I'm going from 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I can just add on like I'm counting. If I'm at 4 p.m., I'm just going to count the difference to get to 9. So it's 1 hour to get to 5 o'clock, then 6 o'clock, then 7 o'clock, then 8 o'clock, then 9 o'clock. So to go from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. is 5 hours, because 4 plus 5 equals 9. So if you're at 4 o'clock and you add 5 more hours, it will get you to 9 o'clock p.m. Now, letter C is 11 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. So they're both times on the hour, but here we're starting at a.m. and we're ending at p.m. And that's because once we hit 12 o'clock, it becomes noontime and it switches over to p.m. So when we're counting this time, we have to remember that there's only 12 numbers on the clock face. So like they have us starting at 11 a.m. Okay. So once we add 1 hour, it becomes 12 noon or 12 p.m., but we can't keep counting higher like to 13 and 14 because the next hour is 1 o'clock. So when I'm counting 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., I would start at 11 a.m. and add an hour to go to 12 o'clock, then another hour to go to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4 o'clock, then 5 o'clock. So it is an elapsed time of 6 hours to go from 11 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. Okay, letter D are times on the half hour. So they're both a.m. times and they're both on the half hour. So I'm going from 3:30 a.m., that's in the middle of the night, we would be in a deep, deep sleep, to 10:30 a.m., which would be like the middle of our morning. So I'm going to start at 3:30 and count on hours. So from 3:30, I would add an hour to get to 4:30, then 5:30, then 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10:30. So it is 7 hours to go from 3:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Letter E has us starting at 7 o'clock, so it's a time on the hour. and it's 7 o'clock p.m. That's getting close to bedtime. And our ending time is on the half hour, and it's in the morning. So 1:30 a.m., it's in the middle of the night. Again, we would be in a deep, deep sleep. So what I can do with this is I can add on hours to the closest hour to 1:30 a.m. So I would add on hours till I got to 1 o'clock a.m. and then add on the 30 minutes or the half hour of elapsed time. So once again, I have to remember that once I get to 12 o'clock, which in this case will be 12 o'clock midnight, then it switches over to the 1. So if I'm starting at 7 o'clock p.m., I would add an hour to get to 8 o'clock, then 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, then it switches over to 1. So here's 6 hours to get to 1 o'clock a.m., and then we add on the 30 minutes or half hour to get to 1:30. So we could say 6.5 hours or 6 hours and 30 minutes. Now for F, G, and H, they want us to also find out how much time has passed, but the first thing we need to do is figure out what time is being shown on each clock. So for letter F, I look, my hour hand is after the 7, but not yet at the 8. And my minute hand is on the 6 or halfway around the clock. So it is 7:30, and they're letting us know it's p.m. in the evening. The ending time, my hour hand is after the 12, but not on the 1 yet. So it's 12:30 because the minute hand is on the 6. So both of them are on the half hour. So I'm just adding hours to get from 7:30 to 12:30. So I have 7:30, I add on an hour to get to 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. And once it hit 12 o'clock, it switched over to AM. So 5 hours to go from 7:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. All right, let's look at letter G. Well, actually, for these two, I'm going to just put the time right before the AM or PM. Okay, always make sure you're looking at the little hand first. That's your hour hand. So when my little hand is pointing straight at the 6 and my minute hand is straight on the 12, I know that it's 6 o'clock, and they're letting me know it's AM in the morning. Okay. My next clock also shows the hour hand at the 6 and my minute hand at the 12, but this time it's PM. So from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So I would need to count the hours from 6 to 6, making sure that when I hit 12 o'clock, my next hour will be 1. So I've got 6 a.m. I'm going to count on hours to get to 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and then I need to add 2 more for 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. So I had a total of 10, 11, 12 hours had passed. And that makes sense because we know that there are 24 hours in a full day. So half of a day is 12 hours. So to go from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. would be half a day or 12 hours. Okay, let's look at letter H. So my hour hand is in between the 7 and the 8. So it's 7, and my minute hand is on the 6, which is halfway around. So 7:30 a.m. And then this clock is showing 1:30 a.m. Okay, so If I'm at 7:30 a.m., that's 7:30, like around the time we're eating breakfast in the morning. So then to get to 1:30 a.m., it's going to be more than 12 hours because I'm going to have to go through the whole day of awake hours, and 1:30 a.m. is going to happen in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping. So this is how I'm going to figure this out. I know to go from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. is half a day or 12 hours. So now what I'm going to do is start at 7:30 p.m. and count how many more hours to get to 1:30 in the morning. And then I'm going to add those two numbers together. So if I'm at 7:30 p.m., I'm then going to count on by hours: 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30. So I have to add 6 more hours. So 12 plus 6. My 2 plus 6 gives me 8, and then my 1, 10. So this is a total of 18 hours of elapsed time. Okay, on the back is where I'm going to be solving elapsed time with word problems. So number 2A says Tracy arrives at school at 7:30 a.m. She leaves school at 3:30 p.m. How long is Tracy at school? So they're both times on the half hour, so I can just add hours to help me out. So if she gets to school at 7:30, I'm going to add on hours to say 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. So it's a total of 8 hours. So I need to write my answer as a sentence. Tracy is at school for 8 hours. And every statement needs to end with a period. Okay, letter B. Anna spent 3 hours at dance practice. She finished at 6:15 p.m. What time did she start? So they're giving us the ending time of 6:15 p.m. and letting us know she spent 3 hours. So what we need to do is start at 6:15 and count back 3 hours to get the starting time. So I can just count back 3. If she started at 6:15, we count back an hour to say 5:15, 4:15, 3:15. So since it needs to be answered in a statement, Anna started practice at 3:15 p.m. period, once again. Okay, letter C. Andy finished baseball practice at 4:30 p.m. His practice was 2 hours long. What time did his baseball practice start? So once again, they're giving us his ending time. He ended at 4:30 p.m. and we know that his practice lasted for 2 hours. So we need to start at 4:30, subtract 2 hours to find out the time he started. So if he ended at 4:30, I'm going to count back an hour to 3:30 and then another hour back to 2:30. So answering in a statement, Andy's baseball practice started at 2:30 p.m. And notice for both of these, I've included p.m. because it's like when we measure, and we talk about like using the correct unit, like inches or centimeters. If I don't identify PM or AM, we really don't know what time. All right, and let's look at letter D. Marcus took a road trip. He left on Monday at 7 o'clock a.m. and drove until 4 o'clock p.m. On Tuesday, Marcus drove from 6 o'clock a.m. to 3:30 p.m. How long did he drive on Monday and Tuesday? So the first thing we're going to need to do is figure out how many hours he drove on Monday. Then we'll figure out how many he drove on Tuesday. And since they want to know the total number of hours, we will then need to add them up. So he left on Monday at 7 a.m. and drove until 4 p.m. Since they're both times on the hour, we can just add on hours. So starting at 7 a.m., we then have 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So on Monday, he drove a total of 9 hours. I'm going to write that here. Okay, on Tuesday, he left at 6 o'clock a.m. and finished at 3:30 p.m. So what I'm going to want to do is count the hours from 6 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then I'll add that extra 30 minutes or half an hour on. So leaving at 6, we then add on hours 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So there's 9 hours, and then we need to add 30 minutes more or a half an hour. So I can say 9.5 hours. So for the total amount of time, 9 plus 9 is a doubles fact. It gives us 18. And then we need to add that half hour. So how long did he drive on Monday and Tuesday? Marcus drove a total of 18.5 hours. So boys and girls, that was lesson 16, the last lesson in our math series for 2nd grade. So you are going to complete the homework pages on your own, upload a photo to Google Classroom, and then my students also need to go into Edulastic and take the Module 8 assessment. Bye.